Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 2 p.m., and that's on the Eastern Time Zone. As I get to ride home with you in the afternoon, it's always such a pleasure. Thank you so much for sending emails. Definitely appreciate that. It makes my day. You are not bothering me within the least. Continue sending those. Donna at donnasedge.com. Our show, you can find it syndicated on television. And that's on Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. You can also find us on Charter Communications. You can also find us, we are syndicated also with our podcast, the Newscasters.com. So proud to be part of that team where we can actually talk and not have to worry about it. So I think that's really neat. As a matter of fact, the guy heading this whole thing up is with me right now. His name is Clint Day. Clint, thank you so much for being on the show with me today.
Donna, it's great to be with you and your audience. It's always a pleasure.
Well, I'm going to tell you, we got the best audience. We do.
Yes, you do.
I tell advertisers, they'll say, well, why should I advertise with you? Especially here in South Carolina, I'm kind of new here. And I say, well, for one thing, we got the best audience. And another thing, we have the absolute best guest. And I've got one with me right now, Clint Day.
Well
and
done,
then we
thank you.
also have the best sponsors. I mean, it's just, it's not me. It's I have the best guest. So it's great information out there for you today. There's something you and I want to talk about, and this is a little fuse. And I wanted to mention this one. My parents didn't get along that well. They wound up with a divorce and all that stuff. But the one thing I promised my husband Phil I would never do is throw dishes at him. I'm not going to destroy my dishes. I mean, like you. Because you and I have a show between the show and before and after, during the breaks and all that kind of stuff. You mentioned maybe paper plates would be okay.
Like a Frisbee, Go ahead. I didn't hear you. Sorry. You went out?
Oh, no, that's okay. You mentioned before the show started, maybe a paper plate throwing would be okay.
Yes, man. Well, it wouldn't be, but at least it you can't really control it. It flies in all different directions like a Frisbee, it just doesn't fly like a Frisbee.
Mm-hmm.
Plus,
Yeah, there you go. Well, we're not in a very peaceful world right now. And I'm talking about on the, the economic front, I think it's getting better. But what I'm talking about is our elected officials can't seem to make it work. What's wrong with everybody?
Yes, you're so right. And I think about our pastors in a series on the fruit of the Spirit, and he was talking about kindness yesterday, and our world needs more kindness. And I think about, like you said, with our leaders, with Elon Musk and Trump going at it, of two incredibly powerful men, powerful egos, and used to kind of get in their way. And government just doesn't work like a private business or a publicly traded business. You have to work with a lot of people to make decisions, and one or two votes. We saw the big bill pass the House by one vote. So one person could have decided the fate of that, and clearly they did. And so we've got to be willing, I think, to forgive and show kindness, not let our egos get in the way, and be united and see what we can do to bring this country together. We keep hearing that. Sadly, the problem is we have to have a common enemy usually for a place to come together. And a lot of times that requires a war, and we'd really rather not go to war to unite our country. We want to be united as best we can. But the reality is we have a lot of different views, and the political stuff that I've been involved with, former state senator and a chairman of a district party, it's tough because, again, if you get 51% of the people to support you, you win, right? But you still had 49% didn't vote for you. So, and Trump, that's where Trump is. We can talk about landslide, but the reality is that election was very close here in Georgia. It was 115,000 votes. And 5 years ago and 6 years ago, it would have been a 400,000 or 500,000 vote change. They're saying in Georgia, we're getting 2/3 of the people moving here are Democrats. And usually It's minorities, a lot of Hollywood jobs, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
tech jobs, and those jobs naturally bring more liberal thinkers in most cases. And then, we look at what's going on in universities and Harvard, and it's a business that's going to have to change, right? But the
Mm-hmm.
reality is 97% of their professors are liberals. And so we have all these forces pushing things that way. And again, from my standpoint, we really need to think about what kindness is and focus on what can we do together, how we can do that. It's now, we'd love to say it. It's another thing to do it.
Absolutely. The one thing about Bill Clinton, the one thing I know he did many things wrong, but he did at least kind of try to reach out there with the opposing team.
Yes. But of course, he had no choice. He had Newt Gingrich and I believe Trent Lott on the Senate side. And so he had very reasonable people with great vision. And he was the last president, as you know, to balance the budget. Of course, Newt forced it. And I agree with Musk. I mean, there needs to be need to do more about getting a balanced budget. But my understanding in this reconciliation bill, that's not what you do there. It's in the budget at the end of the year and then going into the new year. But so a lot of what was already put there was given to them by the Biden administration. Again, that's my understanding. I'm no expert on it, but the next time around, they need to really start having some cuts and then figure out how to get, slowly get us back to a balanced budget.
A lot of our listeners send emails. Continue doing that, Donna at donnasedge.com. But a lot of the emails I'm getting are people who are wondering if this is just a setup. I mean, are they really mad at each other?
I agree with you. It's a red herring. It's a red herring.
It's like a wrestling match.
Yes,
You know how they
yes.
pretend they're mad?
Yes, I agree with you, and I hope that's the case. But I mean, I think all people have had relationships where you've had a spat like this, and you've been able to come back together on a common cause. And I understand the NASA director was more of a Democrat that Musk was wanting, and then of course, once Trump found a lot of things out, that the guy was supporting his opponent for president. I mean, why would you put somebody in a job like that, any job, if you can prevent it, that voted for the other guy? I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't either. I can't say there's going to be 100% unity there. I mean, not that there's ever going to be 100%, but there are some things Trump is extremely smart about. I mean, and then sometimes I question some of the things he does.
Well, I tell you what, he expects loyalty, and I can completely understand that. My understanding again with his employees and things, he's had people have been very, very dedicated to him and his purpose and his business and his hotels and all the different developments he's done, country clubs, and I believe totally in that. I agree with that. I mean, you want somebody that's going to be there fighting for you, not fighting against you or undermining you in the while they act like they're supporting you. That's one thing that I've had in many cases in my own life. I mean, when I was a district chairman, it was amazing. One of my top lieutenants, who I thought I could rely on the most, was actually undermining me to run against me later. And it was one of those things you just kind of go, wow, it's amazing that people will do that, especially when your goal is, I'm one of those people that want to help build people up and raise them up and get them trained and then get them ready and then be able to go and endorse them for what they want to do. But this gentleman, did that. And I think we all have things like that. And there really does need to be a lot of forgiveness and just moving on. But I also think it's important that if we've ever hurt someone that way, to try to go back and say, I really am sorry that it worked out that way. There's sometimes you have to let somebody go from your employee or as an employee or whatever. That can be very, very difficult. They can be a friend of yours, but the reality of your economics, it requires it, or your new situation, whatever that was. And it's very hard sometimes to have to deal with that. There's no easy way to do it. That's the thing we know, when you have to kind of let somebody go too.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you something I did learn early in life in the business world is not to hire family or friends. I mean, I would rather just start from scratch. And sometimes I would hire someone who had worked for the competitor, and sometimes I didn't. So but let me ask you a question. How do you know? Because a lot of times people use you, and like this person used you to actually compete against you. How do you detect whether somebody is really, really on your team, or they're just using you?
Right. I think a key point for me, of course, pray about it and ask God, give you discernment on the right type of people to hire and get the an election, you don't have a choice. If you're the chairman and someone's elected the vice chairman, that's the people's, choice. And so you have to learn how to work with them. But in the reality of discerning that, I think it's just a matter of seeing their fruit. God's word's clear that you'll know them by their fruit. People say, don't judge people, right? We understand that. But I used to have a friend that said, but you got to be a fruit inspector. You'll know them by their fruit. And so if you see them doing something or talking bad about somebody else, then you know that they're probably going to do that to you, right? And so I think there's a real need for balance in that. I mean, I think that, again, that critical spirit that can come in on somebody, and that's just kind of their nature. And I just saw it. I was at the Republican convention recently in Georgia, and I saw that there. You got a vice chairman who's running against the chairman, and the chairman didn't know nothing right. And you're sitting there going, wait a minute, he helped elect President Trump, and he's elected Republicans. We lost the Senate races, which is, who understands that? I have no idea how that happened. But again, the bottom line is that wasn't in his service, if you will. It happened after that or before that. And so we see these battles among so-called friends, and then the opponent doesn't really make a good argument to why that other person should go, right? And again, those egos get involved and a lack of kindness. And I just don't understand that sometimes. I was taught to be loyal. I mean, in my family, we were taught to be loyal. And my children's mom would say sometimes to me, you're loyal to a fault. You expect loyalty and you give it to people. And I think that's really important, though. We need to be able to be counted on. We need to be able to be, not if they're doing something illegal, immoral, and unethical, then, let it be known. Change that. I understand that. But if they're striving to do the right job, and I think it's important we try to help them.
And a lot of times it comes to name calling, which is what these two guys are doing, is name calling, and which sounds so playground childish, like you're in the third grade or something. We got to stop doing that. It's not just Trump. Other people do this as well, especially on the Democrat side. They claim to be the tolerant people. They love everybody and all this, but they crave people not getting along with each other. They crave this name calling stuff. I mean, how many times have we been called racist when we were nothing like that?
Right. I agree with you totally. And I think a lot of it comes back to the individual. I think it's how we're raised, and, not, if you can't say something good, don't say anything, right? But the reality of politics, I'd much rather them shoot it out with words and ideas and concepts rather than guns. That's for sure. Because we see so many countries in the world. I mean, we see in Nigeria where Christians are being killed by Muslims. And I mean, hundreds of them at a time. They'll be in a church service and surrounded by Muslims and all killed. And the president there is a Muslim now. He had Christian last time and now been Muslim this time. And he's not really doing anything about it. So those type things are going on around the world. We need to be aware of it. But at the same time, coming back to America, I agree that there needs to be that effort to somehow work together, find out. I just, again, wish let's go down a list. Let's get 10 things that we think is good, going to help, or 5, and let's focus on those and try to accomplish them. And I really do believe it's in our self-interest, right? It's not selfish. It's in our self-interest to not spend more than you have and create a lot of debt. You'll prosper better. I mean, the word's clear on that too. The Bible's clear. Try to owe no one anything except to love them, right? And I think that in my own business career, I know I got out of balance. And you hear different arguments. Some people say, well, it's only 4%, or that our debt payment is only 4% of our total GDP. And I go, well, and that's what it was in 1970 or whatever. And I just go, okay, so what? I mean, if we had a balanced budget and all our money was going to help with taxpayers some way, I think that's just a better way to do it. And you're not wasting $1 trillion to pay the debt, the interest.
It's incredible. And sometimes we can avoid situations. I've looked back on decisions I've made in my life, and of course, hindsight, but then I would think about, if I hadn't done that, if I had let God guide me instead of me, Donna, coming up with the idea, maybe I wouldn't have had that pitfall. I'm going to use one example, and that's Fort Hood, the assassination that took place there. Okay, that guy was a Muslim. Should we have Muslim people in our military? I know there are some peaceful ones, but I'm just talking about as a whole, when we're infidels, is it wise to have, shouldn't they be vetted first before we give them some kind of a general or whatever
Yes.
status?
Well, I mean, if they're Americans, they're going to have the opportunity. There's no, religious discrimination. There's freedom of
Yeah.
religion. And I just am a big believer that, if they're loyal Americans and they'll fight for America, I do know what the Quran says. I mean, you either convert or we'll kill you. And that's pretty much what we see going on in the world. That's what happened in early Christianity in the Middle East when the Muslims took over in the 1400s and started their religious wars. It's a reality of that religion. So I think we need to be very careful. We need to be very careful. I heard something the other day that in 1970, 4% of Americans were born, outside the United States. And today that's 15%. And again, good people can come here and they can live here and prosper. But this country has let a lot of people in purposefully, the Democratic Party has, that will eventually vote Democrat once they become citizens. I mean, I see it all over Atlanta where I grew up. There's a lot of immigrants that are there, and we welcome them. We love their hard work. But the Democrat plan is clearly that's why they let whatever it was, 15, 20 million people in the Biden administration, because eventually they believe someone's going to let them be citizens. And if the House and Senate is controlled with the presidency at the national level, that's probably going to happen. If you recall, it happened under Reagan before. I mean, Reagan legalized a lot of immigrants, if you will. He actually did that. And I think it was the right thing to do at the time. But we're also facing a different type of person that's coming here. And literally from all over the world, as you know, in China and India and Zimbabwe and Mozambique and a lot of from South and Central America. But it really is a more universal thing. I mean, Biden was literally flying people in the dark of the night to small towns and bringing people in by the hundreds of thousands. We really don't know how many. That's the scary thing. We really don't know how many and what kind of people we were bringing in. And that's why Trump is doing the right thing. But even if you take out 3,000 people a day, that's only about 1 million a year. And if you got 15 to 20 million, it's going to take you a long time.
Yeah.
Trump won't be president anymore. And of course, with the courts doing what they're doing and stopping the president from doing his job, I mean, I understand when it works for our advantage as conservatives, we like that. But when it works against us with the president, we don't like it. So we need the courts there to balance things out. But at the same time, he needs to be able to do his job. I don't understand when you're obeying the law, right? And you're told you can't obey the law. I don't understand why a court can do that.
Yeah, I don't get that. I would have a lot more respect for illegals coming in, illegal. I love the folks who come here the right way, but I would have much more respect for them if they'd be a little more gracious. I wanted to mention this. My daughter-in-law is from Russia, was brought here when she was 9 years old. This girl is the most grateful person I have ever met. I could give her a paper clip, and she would send me a thank you note. Yes. I mean, she's so proud to be an American. She loves that. But I don't see a lot of blending in. It's like we're having to learn their language, which I could do that. But what I'm saying is when you come into someone else's territory, shouldn't you try to blend in to their ways?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you see that in the second generation. I mean, how many times have we had someone that came in and they're a housekeeper or whatever, and they have real trouble speaking English because they never have to speak it in their house. They're speaking Spanish still or whatever their native tongue is. And then, of course, the second generation's like, Grandma, second generation, Mom, why aren't you speaking English? I mean, we got to speak English here. And then the grandchildren come along and they still don't understand. Grandma, why do you want me to interpret everything you need? You need to learn how to speak English. And my mom has several people from Central America that work for her as housekeepers and that type of thing. And she's always reminding them, she walks in the kitchen, speak English, because it's amazing how fast you can lose it. And you're at a disadvantage if you can't speak English. I mean, clearly, again, growing up in Atlanta, it was very black and white. Today, you go there, there's different. We were in a halal, kind of a Muslim grocery store the other day. We just saw it and went in there and had food, went to a place called a Jerusalem Bakery. And of course, I thought it was Jewish, but I got in there and I realized it was Muslim. And of course, we didn't have that growing up. And then you see the map of Dallas where they're building mosque around Dallas. I don't know if you've seen that map, But it's like a Starbucks list. They're all over the place. And so that's going to be part of where we are. And the thing that I've observed, if you get over 5% Muslim, you're going to start having a lot of trouble with it. And Canada's already there. England's past it by far.
Mm-hmm.
France is there. They say a lot of times the most common baby name in Paris is Muhammad. And so that they just have more children. And you have 8 or 9 kids, and the French aren't even replacing themselves. In 25, 30 years, they will be majority Muslim, according to the statistics. So we got to be very aware of it. We got to love them. We got to love them and try to share Christ with them. I believe that 100%, because only Jesus is going to take care of them and give them that peace that they really want. Because I really think everybody wants peace. But Islam, to me, does not see, when Bush called it a religion of peace, I don't see that.
No, I'm not seeing that either. Like I said before, there are some people, I think it's like Christianity. Some people follow Jesus and they say they're Christians and that kind of thing, but really don't go that far. I've met Muslims that way. They claim they're Muslims, but they really don't go for it that much. And as a matter of fact, I met a guy, had a business in a mall a few years ago, and about 25 years ago. And so this guy had an ice cream place right by me. He was a Muslim. And now we'll say this, he did his thing. I mean, he went and prayed to Allah several times a day. He would go to his back. We all had these little inventory spots. So he would go to his inventory spot and he would pray to Allah. Now, the doors were really heavy getting into those. So if you weren't careful, you would slam a door. So I had a customer who needed something. So I needed to go back to my inventory room. So I go back, he's praying. I didn't slam doors. I didn't do any of that stuff because I'm thinking if I respect him, he's going to have to respect me, I hope. So it was kind of a little test on my part. So I went back there. I gently closed the door back after I was taking care of my customer. And my customer got all upset at me and said, "Why didn't you just slam the door at that guy?" And all this kind of stuff. And I said, if you slammed the door at me, you wouldn't be able to lead me to go drink water. I mean, you just wouldn't. And I said, I'm hoping if I'm kind to him, he's going to be kind to me. After that, every Christmas he would say, "Merry Christmas to you," which shocked me. I couldn't believe he'd say that. And then Easter, he would say, "Merry Easter to you." Merry Easter. He didn't know what he was saying. But I've often wondered about that guy. I wonder how he turned out.
Yeah.
Did he ever think about, not that I did anything great, but and this was during the 9/11-ish area, So, and that could have been why he was trying to be so kind to me. But I just wondered, did I ever lead this guy in any kind of way, and I won't know about it until after we're in heaven?
Yes, ma'am, you're right. And I think sometimes we need to be willing to be bold, though, and at the right time, pray about it and ask God to help give us the right words. I recently was in a class, and part of the class was a requirement of reaching out to someone in an unchurched area. And I did that. There was a gentleman that moved here. I had helped his daughter, who was graduating from nursing school in our area, with some things going on with her life through another friend, a Catholic friend, actually. And I had helped the daughter, and all of a sudden the parents were coming over here from Afghanistan. And they're Hazaras, which is a Shia sect, if you will. And the Shias are discriminated against. 90% of the Muslims are Sunnis, and they're Shias. A lot of Iran's Shia, for example. And so I was able to interview him and ask him a bunch of questions. And one of the questions I asked him is, in your native country, did you ever encounter Christians? And he said, not that I know of, right? He said, I don't know. I don't think I did. And I said, but I don't discriminate against them. I respect them. And I said, well, that's good. And but his daughter was having to interpret. He didn't speak English, and neither did his wife. And so, but again, God has brought them over here. So we have a lot of opportunities to witness to people, just like you did with the Muslim gentleman you met. And we need to do that. We need to show them kindness. We need to show them the fruit of the Spirit. And I don't think slamming a door on somebody would be showing kindness, right?
You wouldn't lead me.
Yeah. And again, they pray. They're disciplined. A disciplined Muslim will pray that 5 times a day. He'll face Mecca and pray. And we need to do more of that ourselves. We need to be more prayerful. And I've been amazed. The people I've met. I had a friend recently at church, and we had had a situation in the prayer room where we were reaching out to this young couple walking in fear, and they needed Jesus, and they prayed to receive Jesus because they were just walking in fear. And they didn't, you gotta take over anything. He'll give you authority over all of it if you accept Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior. But this friend of mine had not expressed what was going on in his life. He was going to have surgery, and the doctor said it doesn't look good. It was a growth in there that on the scans did not look good. And so we prayed over him and asked God to heal him. And sure enough, he went to surgery last Tuesday, and it was not cancerous. It was something that they could get rid of with a laser, and it's just a miracle, but that's not what the doctor told him, and just because the doctor tells you something doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be true. We know that once they get in there, they can figure it out. But I think it goes back to the power of prayer and those relationships that we have with anyone, that prayer is just such an important thing. And of course, right, like I say, with that person that you feel a feeling of, you want to share your faith with them and get them into the kingdom, because that's what really matters. And I just really believe that you did the right thing to not slam the door. Because if you're, like you say, if you're having a tough time, a tough day, and he sees you praying, the last thing you want to do is a bunch of noise, unless it's just unavoidable. So.
I think so too. But let me ask you a question, because a friend of mine is from England. His name is Rick, and he's on the show quite a bit. So I asked Rick, I said, let me ask you about what people in England think about us. And he said, the big thing people in England think about Americans is we eat our own.
Yeah, that goes back to that loyalty, that lack of loyalty. I said that earlier, as you know. But England's got a lot bigger problems. They're allowing too many immigrants there. The mayors, the big cities are all Muslims now, and their leadership is getting very Muslim. They let the Quran be read in the parliament recently, which they don't even let the Bible be read. I mean, it's just amazing, the influence. But of course, if you scream loud enough, that's usually Christians don't tend to do that. And I think, again, we need to let our voices be heard. And we better let it be heard, because if we don't, they're gonna snuff us out. And I think that, again, I'm hearing there's a lot more young men, especially, that are coming back to faith. I'm very encouraged by that, because, again, ultimately they hopefully will be the spiritual leader. But I'll tell you, I know men need to step up. I mean, and we don't need to let the world tell us that men don't need to take charge and be the leaders, and especially be the spiritual leaders. I mean, I see that quite often, where the woman is more reading the Bible or more prayerful and helping teach in Sunday school or whatever. And sometimes the man kind of takes a back approach. So it's important that we men get involved. And as a matter of fact, I was at a prayer gathering up in Dalton, Georgia recently for the Republican Party, and there were no men on the stage. And I was like, what? I mean, there needs to be a man up there, and he needs to be praying. And so you ladies need to find him. Of course, several of them had husbands that were working the floor and that type of thing. I get it. But those husbands, in my opinion, still should have tried to be there at least for a few minutes and be there to open it up and let everybody know, look, I got to get back to the convention floor or whatever, a meeting. I understand that. But we men need to step up and be involved and lead. And you see people like Joey Behart and people on The View or whatever, just putting down men all the time. I think men are really getting tired of it. They're tired of the attempts to sissify men. We're really getting tired of that we're supposed to be like women. We're not. It's male and female, just the way God made it, no matter what anybody says, no matter what anybody does on a surgical procedure or medicines. Men are men and ladies are ladies.
I totally 100% agree with that. Absolutely. And guys should open doors. But I'm going to tell you something. I've been several places where, and I wait on the guy to open the door for me. I think they should. I do. I raised my son that way. And so one guy just rushed ahead of me, and he was actually an older guy. It wasn't a young guy now. So he just goes rushing through. And what I wanted to say to him is, did your mother not and then I wanted to say, do you not think I'm a lady? I kind of took offense to that. So I think first of all, women need to be ladies. There's nothing wrong with that. We need to be feminine. Now I like wearing blue jeans and picking blackberries.
Sure.
I love that. But what I mean is overall, we need to be ladies and let men be men. There's
Mm.
nothing in the world wrong with that. I think
Absolutely.
that's a great thing.
100% agree. And again, I think a lot of that is, I've had feminists get mad at me for holding the door for them, and I'll say that. I mean, I don't mean to be a smart aleck. I've said that before. I'm so sorry. I thought you were a lady, and I want to do the right thing of what my mom taught me to do, and they just catch it like, but it's okay. They're angry people. They need Jesus. It's okay. Love them anyway, show them kindness, and still be willing to open the door, as you said.
Well, my son went on a date one time with this girl, and I said, no, son, you always open the door, okay? You open her car door. It's so old-fashioned. But anyway, he said, Mom, she thought I was crazy. And I said, why? He said, because I went to open the door. And she said, I can open the door myself. And I said, well, then she's the wrong old gal.
That's right. Date someone else.
Go somewhere else, son. Okay, let's go
Exactly.
into a commercial break, and we'll be right back in just a minute.
Thank
After
you.
the show already. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Queen City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community. Whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need, toys at Christmas, or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
I'm excited to announce our Christmas extravaganza is finally here. Get this season's flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. They won't last long, so get them while you can. Our famous My Slippers, they haven't been on sale for over a year. Regularly $119.98, now only $59.98. Our 6-piece towel sets are back in stock with extremely limited quantities, only $29.98. With hundreds of MyPillow products, there's something for everyone on your Christmas list. Bathrobes, duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save on all MyPillow products. For example, flannel sheets for as low as $59.98. or our 6-piece towel sets, just $29.98. But that's not all. I'm extending our 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st of 2025. Plus, all orders over $75 or more ship absolutely free.
The only place I buy my beef is Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama. Their cattle is born and raised on their ranch, grass and grain-fed, and you can feel confident when you serve your family and friends because their beef is all natural and no antibiotics or hormones are added. You can buy whole beef or perhaps go in with family or friends and buy half. Their customer service is number one as they take care of the delivery to their local processor and can deliver to your home for a small added fee. They also offer herd replacement heifers. I always call Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama for my beef specialty recipes and cookouts, and you can too. Food shortages are increasing, so buy local by calling 256-523-6462. That's 256-523-6462. We are back. My name is Donna, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. That's why we have Clint Day on the show with us, because Clint speaks the truth. And you do a lot of research. Now, what is this with folks who, I'm just going to listen to what The View says. I'm just going to listen to even Fox and see what Fox says. What's wrong with doing our own research with a reliable source?
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think one good example for me personally is CBN. I feel like CBN Christian Broadcasting, TBN has some really good information, Trinity Broadcasting. I think it's important sometimes YouTube, the right people to follow, maybe someone like a General Flynn, someone that's a truth teller, like yourself, your show, your program, and the news people get there. And I want to believe I have a program called Clint Day Speaks Truth in Love on TNS and other social media. And I really would encourage people to listen to that because of the programs we have, the people we have. And I appreciate you letting me say that. And of course, I wrote a book called A Place of Restoration, and I'm trying to encourage men to show Christ-like love to their wives, care for their wives' spirits, and not shame their wives. That's one thing I wish I'd learned. I would have, I think, still been in a marriage that lasted 24 years and sadly ended in divorce. I didn't want it, but didn't have a choice. Mm-hmm. So I want to encourage people with those type things to find the right kind of news sources that are consistent with what the Word of God says. And know the Word by reading the Word. You got to read the Bible to understand what it says. And we don't ever want to do anything that violates that Word. So we'll do everything we can to stay true to that. So wherever you can get your news source that is consistent with what your worldview is, right? You want to listen to the other side. We want to listen to CNN and the communist network, they call it, or whatever, and then NBC every once in a while. I mean, just some. You got to at least hear what their view is. But I hear the mainstream media, the ABCs of the world, that David Muir guy, I mean, he has like an audience of 15 million compared to a lot of your Fox News and others, like 3.5, 4 million, which is the largest cable news network. But again, find that reliable source, people that you trust. Eric Metaxas is awesome, if you've ever heard him, from TBN and also on the radio. People where you can rely on what they're saying to be true. You can trust but verify, right? Like Reagan used to say. And when you hear a story, don't automatically believe it. I mean, we know that. We learn that sometimes the hard way. And I've been in many places where even as an elected official in the past or being interviewed, I can say something, but they can take a soundbite and make you the biggest liberal in the world or the biggest conservative. It depends on what their spin's going to be. And so be very aware, hear the whole story, not just the soundbite.
Oh, yeah. And photos. And I posted this on my Facebook page over the weekend. So I saw something that said, sometimes you need to see both sides of the story. And the picture was showing Prince William, and it looked as if he were flicking a bird. I mean, it looked like what he was doing. But then they let you see the other side. What he was doing was holding up 3 fingers. But it looked like he was doing something else when you saw the other camera angle. Now, another thing was a lion, and it looked like a lion was devouring an animal. Well, when you looked at the other side, what the lion was doing is she was taking care of her cub. She was holding the cub. It was the camera angle.
Yes, interesting.
So again, those things we have to watch out for as well.
Absolutely. Of course, with AI and everything, the way they I mean, we see the cartoons and we see the little jokes, if you will, with the baby talking like Trump or whatever. And,
Mhm.
it's amazing how AI has changed things and make things look real that are not. They're made up. And even in Hollywood, we're seeing in Atlanta, it's a big market for movie making and things.
Mhm.
And I was listening to an elected official the other day that Tyler Perry came back from an AI convention in Las Vegas, and he was getting ready to do this massive studio in Atlanta. And he saw what AI could do. He said, "We can't build the studio. It's too much of a risk," and
Mhm.
literally stopped. And so there's a lot of things going on with technology and things that make things look real. And I really do believe that's all going to be part of Satan's deception at these end times. Remember, the World Economic Forum was out there trying to say you will own nothing and you'll be happy because you'll
Mhm.
have food on the table and you'll have a roof over your head and clothes on your back. I mean, that's pretty much what he was saying. And that's just a worldview that Satan wants to take us to. The communists want to take us to that. And we have a lot of elected officials, and don't underestimate AOC and Bernie Sanders. I mean, their view is catching hold to a lot of people. And they really do believe that they can change this country by becoming socialist and having health, free health, so-called free health care. But we always got to remember, anytime they say the word free, we taxpayers are paying for it. There is no free lunch,
No, there's no
as we've been
free.
told. And so there's no free health care. It's not going to be free. It won't be as good. If you think the government does a good job at the VA, for example, if that's the kind of health care you want, that's what Bernie Sanders and AOC and their gang want. And we don't want that. We want a free market. Capitalism is the best system by far for everybody. And you just look around the world. You look at South Korea and North Korea. You look at a map and look at a night vision map, if you will, a night sky view of the country of North Korea. No lights hardly on. And
Mhm.
South Korea is just lit up. So that's a clear indicator of what kind of government. You don't want that dictatorship and you don't want a communism. And most people wake up under some form of a dictatorship.
Mhm.
We're the only one of the few republics that continues to thrive.
Mhm.
And we're a republic. We're not a democracy. People try to call Trump's trying to destroy democracy. Well, we're not a democracy. When we hear a Republican or any candidate say democracy, you got to correct them and say we're a republic. I remember years ago when I was a state senator, I said that in front of a couple of NRA guys, and they go, "Oh, sir, we want to correct you. This is a republic." There's a big difference
Mhm.
because if it's majority rule, every time you try to make a decision, and
Mhm.
it comes back to that, we have those Democratic principles. I get it, but that can hurt the 1% that is the minority. And so the way our system was set up by our founders is a system to protect everyone versus democracy, which can run over people just by one vote.
Mhm. Well, when it comes to anyone, Democrat or Republican, I question everything. So
Yes.
my big question about this was the immigrants who are coming in, and like I said, I'm glad I know some Russian cooking because my daughter-in-law, I
Yeah.
love it, and she's wondering she loves America, that whole thing. But the point is this, okay? She knows what it's like. My daughter-in-law knows what it's like to live in a communist country, and she does not want America to be like that. She was like the first Trumpster. I mean, that I met. She was like, I love this guy. He loves America. This is what we need here. The point is you really have to listen to people who are running for office. I mean, you really, really have to question and quiz them. There's another Republican that decided to go Democrat. And so go for it is what I say.
Yeah. Where was that? I didn't hear about that
Let me
recently.
find it. Yeah, it was over the weekend. And
Okay. So at a national level, or because
at
most
a
of the time you're hearing Democrats
national
becoming
level.
Republicans. Okay.
This dude was at a national level.
Okay. Well, I'll
And
look
I'm going
forward
to
to
find
seeing
it.
that. But going back to what you're saying as far as politics,
Mm-hmm.
again, it goes back to that fruit. You'll know them by their fruit, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if they didn't vote right for years, then they're not going to vote right just because they say so, right? And I
Uh-huh.
think it's important that you look at their track record, and hopefully somebody that's running does have that kind of voting record, has they support organizations that are consistent. Like if say you're pro-life, do you support national right to life? Do you support and your, in our case, Georgia right to life, or your South Carolina right to life? Do they have a given record to the church or whatever? Because again, if their worldview is right where they're giving, I think it's going to be right with their voting.
Okay, this guy, trying to find his name here. It is a former Republican congressman turned Democrat. He announces his bid for Florida governor.
Yes, I saw that. Yes,
Okay.
he was very much a moderate, and of course, they did that. Charlie Crist did that years ago in Florida, and of course, he's no longer really involved in politics, my understanding. And so, again, if your world is going to go with, women in men and women's sports, and allowing them in the locker room, and you're going to say anybody can come here that wants to come here. Illegal immigration's fine. Burning down your neighborhood's fine. Again, that typically is becoming the more left part of the Democratic Party. I mean, I just totally disagree with that worldview. I mean, we've got to protect Americans. And when we talk about America first, it doesn't mean that you don't care about other people. You care about other people, but you have got to take, I mean, it needs to be God first. We all know that. But you got to take care of your own home. And I really agree with Trump on that we got to take care of our own people first, our own taxpayers. And I think I go back to a lot of things that we do. Are you really doing this in the interest of the taxpayers, of the people that support this government, pay for this government? And when you talk about taking an able-bodied man off of Medicaid just because he says he needs Medicaid, I mean, that to me, that makes sense. Is that cutting Medicaid? No, it's getting that person to get a job and get insurance, and then have that dignity of paying for it themselves. Now, if somebody's income, they're working at McDonald's and they need Medicaid because their hourly rate is not enough, I get it, but you can't force that by raising the hourly rate to $20 an hour and saying that's going to be good for everybody, because it's going to be more expensive food for everyone. It's not going to be good for the average person.
Well, and yes, this makes common sense. Okay, so I'm an employer. You're going to make me pay $20 an hour. You're going to mandate that to an entry-level position. Okay, so you're going to make me do it, Mr. Governors. Okay, I'm going to have to do several things. First of all, I'm just going to have less employees. I'll have to do that, which means my customers are not going to be as happy. Customer service is going to go out the window.
That's right.
And not only that, but I've got to cut back on other things as well, because this is what I'm noticing about a lot of restaurants. Went up on the price, but they're giving you smaller portions.
Yeah.
So, and the moms and pops are definitely having to do that right now. That's not good for anybody.
That's right. Well, for me, I need smaller portions, but that's my own discipline. But I mean, I've gotten where I go to restaurants and I try to cut my meal in half and then take the other half off.
Yeah, I do too.
At least that's kind of my goal anyway. Sometimes it's not so easy. But reality, like you just said, you have to do those things. And I mean, like going to McDonald's, I mean, the mobile line, okay, Chick-fil-A, better example. You go to the mobile line, it's fewer people. But it takes fewer people to get you your food, right? Because you don't have to depend on that person to take your order. And so they're trying to push toward that. And my wife is really good at that. She gets the deals, the free French fries, whatever, once in a while. Honestly, admit I'll eat there. But it is really interesting how they're trying to push us that way. And of course, used to, they get your Coke and everything ready for you. And now, most restaurants are trying to get you to go get your own drink. Of course, that saves labor. It's your labor, not theirs. And so we understand that. And we also know that there's robots and things that are coming online right now that can, your car will drive itself, and, you'll be able to, when you go to a restaurant, there are probably going to be robots bringing your food. I mean, people say they don't see how it's going to happen, but I think it will, because of our desire to have those, do what we want to do versus having to take care of those small things. And of course, we see small robots, if you will, with vacuum cleaners that can vacuum our house while we're watching it or whatever. The different things that are already there that we know are coming. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't sell me on the idea of a car that drives by itself. I'm sorry. You just can't do it. Because
when we do, I still want to drive. I still want the ability to take over if I have to. I mean, I would love on I-16, that 150-mile strip between 75 and 95. Those are kind of roads you'd like to be able to take a nap, right? And so I don't know if they'll let you do that, but In China, you see their buses are being driven by robots or by AI and within the bus, which is pretty freaky to think about when you see a bus driving, people getting on and off with nobody around to talk to them or tell them where they're going, whatever. So
Yeah, that's the whole idea. And I think this is part of the big picture. I think the more we don't communicate, this is what they're really after. If we don't communicate, we don't sit and we don't talk with each other, we don't talk
yes,
out issues, we don't talk out problems, just like you mentioned in the first part of the show with Trump and Elon Musk. I mean, if we don't talk it out, I mean, I've got
yes,
several. Okay, Phil and I are husband and wife. Is it perfect? No. But we like to talk things out.
yes,
You know, and we found out the hard way. So when we first were married, okay, we had this business kept us busy. We had 8 locations. It was just like and I started noticing issues, problems. And because I'm the woman part, I'm going to notice those things before the guy does.
mm-hmm.
And I said, we've got to start communicating. First of all, the marriage is going to fail and our business is going to fail.
Yep.
We've got to start communicating. And Phil said, well, I'm just so tired.
Mm.
But we found ourselves trying to please employees. We were doing the jobs for them. Well, he was more than I was, trying to do the job for them. And we had to stop that. Sometimes you just have to sit back and look at the big picture. And what are you doing? I mean, we have to know what we're doing. And I think we're in such a busy world, and Satan knows this. This is one of his tools. We're in such a busy world that we're not taking enough time to check things out. Like the women. Okay, the women's right, people, okay? I'm not for women being in chains, but what I'm saying is, okay, so you're off of the Muslim world where when a man and a woman have an affair, they'll get the woman and dig her in a deep hole and stone her head to death while the guy gets by scot-free.
Yeah.
That's not women's right. So why are they supporting that? And then another thing is, when it comes to women's sports, okay, you got some loser guy couldn't make it work in the men's world, so he decides he wants to be a woman. He still has the strength of a man. He's gonna beat us. I mean, on anything. I have a daughter. Let's pretend I have a daughter, and so I've spent all this money. She's had, she works out all the time. We pay for her nice clothes so she can compete and all that. But the guy beats her.
Mm.
I mean, a guy wins? That doesn't make any sense. So are you really a liberated woman's group if you're for that?
Not at all. I just think it's the way they just hate Trump so much. They're going to do anything they can.
That's
Or they
nuts.
hate conservative men. They're going to go against whatever they think. And I do not see how your Title IX money that is there to promote women's sports, and then you let a man come in and beat you. I mean, I just think about the Thomas guy that beat the lady that's a swimmer who's now got a mission for her life to protect women's sports. It just makes so much sense. I mean, again, the other side, the left, is not common sense. It just doesn't make any sense. And of course, I like that. What Trump says a lot is we want to be about common sense. And I just really do want to be sure that our country sticks to those type things. And again, I recently heard, I think it was in California, where a male softball player was playing women's sports, and he was an ace pitcher, and nobody could hit him. I mean, you're sitting there going, you have a man on the mound, and then that team wins the state championship. And again, I would be very angry. I have 3 daughters, and I have 4 granddaughters. I'd be very angry if a man was beating them in sports and not given they weren't given the same opportunity that their moms were.
Yeah, and then think about beauty contests. There are guys who are winning beauty contests, and it's like the whole world is turned upside down. I mean, Phil and I went to San Antonio, Texas, and we were about to go to the hotel, and it was a beautiful desk, and the lobby was gorgeous, and all this kind of stuff. And so there was looked like a girl striking from far off, but the closer we got, the more I saw that was a dude. And you could see the 5 o'clock shadow right there. And he had a ton of makeup on trying to hide that.
Yeah.
But you can't hide it. So Phil and I walked off, and I said, that was a dude, Phil.
Yeah.
He said, I wondered.
Well,
he said, I thought I saw.
Yeah, we got to really pray for them because, again, they are deceived. And, Satan wants to divide and conquer. And so any way he can divide a person make them confused like that or divide a nation over an issue like that, he will. And so we just got to, I really do believe we've got to keep praying and praying for that person's soul, because again, if Jesus comes into their heart, they're going to want to, they're not going to do anything that grieves the Holy Spirit, and hopefully it will change their lives. And I need to do more of that. I need to pray. I mean, we know the word says pray for your enemies, and I think a key part of that is praying for the AOCs, praying for the Sanders of the world, and I really do more of that. And all these leaders, I mean, we need to pray for Putin, that he'll become a man of peace supernaturally, and Zelensky will become a believer, and Erdogan over in Turkey and Xi over in China, because again, if they became Christians, I mean, what a difference would happen overnight. Netanyahu over in Israel, I mean, Hamas leaders, I mean, if they became Christians, there could be a lot of change. But we know there's not going to be any really permanent peace until the Prince of Peace comes back, till Jesus comes back. And we know the word's clear. It's going to get crazier and crazier. Knowledge is going to increase. We're going to have the wars and rumors of wars. We're going to have natural disasters. And we're seeing that going on right now. And we realize it's just like the book of the Revelation says in the Bible and other places in the Bible, like 27% to 30% of the Bible is prophetic. When you look at what the Bible says about what's going to happen in those end times, the regathering of the people of Israel to Israel, of course, we know that happened in 48. All these things coming together are clear indicators that Christ's return is imminent. And I'm just leaning on him. You know, we got to keep looking up, because we know our redemption draws near. We know that, like the word is going to say, that confusion is going to become more rampant, and many in the church are going to be falling away. And we saw what the Methodist Church did recently, and I saw an article, it seems like about 3,700 churches left the denomination over that issue of allowing gay clergy, and all those assets were taken over by people that their worldview is inconsistent with the Word of God. And there's a price to be paid for that. We need to, because we know we reap what we sow, we reap more than we sow, and we reap later than we sow. That is a fundamental principle that no one can deny. And if our country doesn't continue to reap the right type of actions and put the right kind of seeds in the ground that bring glory to God, we're going to pay the price of the negativity. And we're seeing that. We take prayer out of school years ago, and even though the Ten Commandments are in the Supreme Court and the U.S. House and Senate, they don't allow it a lot of times in school, even though we see states starting to allow that. But people like the ACLU still fight it. They don't want to allow it, even though we had prayer in the schools for almost 200 years. They took it out in the 60s, and that just doesn't make any sense. Of course, we know there's still individual prayers in the school, because anytime you take a test, you're going to be praying, right? but what they taught in the school was the Word of God. Yeah. And they did not, that was part of what they taught. And so the religion of secular humanism took over the schools.
I remember in second grade, my second grade teacher, Miss Anderson, I love that woman. But I remember her on the blackboard actually drawing a diagram of Noah's Ark.
Yes.
And I've wondered about that. What would happen if a teacher did that now?
Yeah. Well, I think if you present it as a historical story, then you could probably do it. But at the same time, I remember I think it was my fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Sockwell, was still fighting the system. She was one of those older teachers that was just I remember we had to give her a penny so she could buy a handkerchief or Kleenexes and all that type of thing, and little supplies back in that day. But again, just the reality that I think a teacher can still show a lot of that. And the Bible is a historical document. It's a literature document that is the number one seller in the world. So it ought to be presented in the right way. I mean, not to proselytize. Of course, I would like to see people come to Christ for sure, but the key thing is get people to read it. Let it stand on its own.
Absolutely. Clint, we're going to have to call it today. 44 seconds left. I can't believe how fast that is. I want to thank you for everything you do for the Newscasters studio. And it's such a great avenue, and I'm so thrilled to be part of it. How can folks find your books?
Okay, Place of Restoration will be on Amazon for sure. And we want to thank you for supporting the Newscaster studio. We're continuing to grow. We're continuing to pray that we'll bring the right broadcast in and people on. And Victoria and Murray are doing a great job, working really hard.
Absolutely, and so are you. And
yes,
so,
ma'am.
guys, thank you so much for watching, and continue sending emails. Definitely do that. Donna@donnasedge.com. We'll see you next time around.